Good morning, folks. We'll get started just here in a few minutes. Grab yourself some coffee, freshen up, get ready for an amazing time, maybe the best hour of your life so far.
Probably, yeah.
It's probably, yeah. That's
All
probably gonna
signs
be.
point to it, definitely.
Yeah.
And while we let everybody trickle in and get situated, can everyone see the presentation from my screen? Awesome.
If anybody's joining, we're gonna give it maybe 2 or 3 minutes before we get started.
Elevator, set the mood.
Oh, no, I don't remind me of being back in the office, and I don't wanna do that. I remember years ago with the awful stuff they used to play.
See lots and lots of familiar and unfamiliar names. And thanks everybody for joining, especially early on a Friday.
This autumn person in, I don't know.
Hi, bestie. All right, Zach, you want to say, let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Last chance for coffee, everybody.
Sounds good.
Get this rolling. Zach, you want to kick us off?
Let's do it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome to your first Tableau Coder session. Kyle and I have been on a brief hiatus for 13 months. I had a baby, moved houses. Kyle's been, I don't know, I don't think he's done much in the last year. But I've at least been busy. So we've taken a little bit of a break to, just catch up on some personal time, and now we're both very excited to come back and get into the second wave of Tableau Coders. Go ahead and flip to the next slide. So let's introduce ourselves a little bit. I'm sure that you all know who I am. My name is Zach Geis. I am Director of Software Engineering at JP Morgan, where I lead all the BI tools and their engineering work, including Tableau, of course. I'm a Tableau Visionary 2-time and Tableau Data Dev Ambassador 3-time. Also lead a couple other things, including the Columbus Tug, websites datatheories.com. I live with my wife and my 2 kids, 2 cats and 2 dogs. And I like to game. I like true crime and house projects. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide.
Everyone knew all that already anyway, but yeah, is the lesser known of the two, me.
My assistant is also here.
My name is Kyle Massey. I am a first-time data dev ambassador for Tableau. I am in a Tableau COE. I'm actually the engineering lead for our COE. I always like to get this out of the way. Zach is my boss at work, but not here. So we'll throw that out there. I'm originally from Cincinnati, but I've been living in Columbus since 2004, where I attended the Ohio State University and graduated and never left. I live with my partner, Dan, and our two pets. We have a dog, Kevin, and a cat, Willie. So our pets both having human names is always really fun when I'm talking to coworkers about things going on around the house. And then hopefully within the next month or so, we'll be adding another 4 legs to the house. We want to get a puppy here really soon. I also love gaming, true crime, and house projects. So Zach, we had a very similar bullet there, so we decided to make it identical. And
He copied mine.
Yeah, I copied off of Zach. Always walking in your shadow, Zach. And quick apology if I sound a little congested or I have a little bit of a cough going on. I did do the smart thing and bring COVID back with me from Tableau conference last week. So feel fine, just dealing with a little bit of the remnants at this point.
And he's trying to see how many people he can give it to here as part of the team. So
yeah, I had a big party for Eurovision as soon as I got home, you know. All right. That's enough about
us. Sharing is caring. All right. So welcome to the initiative. Again, you know, this is part 2 of everything. Man, we're letting a lot of weird people in. Lindsay Betzendahl as well. Gosh, I just don't know who's letting these people in. So this is part 2. There was a part 1 of this that we hosted, you know, about a year ago. That was focused on the REST API. We're going to be focusing on the embedding API. This initiative is really about teaching people to code while using Tableau. There's a lot of things that go with, you know, the APIs. We do have a kind of our mission statement goal here. So teach others to code with Tableau APIs and developer tools while fostering a safe and friendly environment for users of all skill levels. As you can tell, Kyle and I like to have fun. We like to razz each other. Primarily mine are better than his. He tries to razz me. It doesn't always work, but you know,
Zach calls it fun. I leave all of these sessions crying, you know, it's fine.
Yeah, it's
fine.
Good. It's you know, I check that box. That's you know, that's what a good manager does. But we have fun, as you can tell. This is definitely a very friendly atmosphere. We're gonna leave this open for questions. You guys can pop anything into the chat. You can find us between sessions. Just let us know. You know, the goal here is to teach people, even if they have no code experience, they have no experience with any of this stuff. This would be your opportunity to really get started in a nice environment with no previous knowledge. All right, go to the next page. As mentioned, we have already finished part 1. You can find those. We'll talk a little bit about where you can find the information for those. Right now, we're focused on part 2. So everything that we go through over the next several weeks and months is going to be all about embedding, using the embedding API, whether you want to take Tableau and embed in like an iframe or a website, you want to put it into an application, you want to have, you know, conversations, communications between the application and Tableau. We're going to kind of be going through all of that. We'll go through many examples. At the same time, you're going to learn a little bit of the foundations of web development. We'll talk about how to use HTML and CSS and JavaScript, how you put them together and build small websites and applications. So it's going to be fun. In the future, we'll come into some of these other APIs. And yeah, I'll talk about where the recordings are for part 1 shortly. But over the future, hopefully it's not going to be another year, but we'll get into part 3 with the metadata API, the extensions API, hyper API, and whatever else you know, we feel like doing. The next page. So brief recap of part 1. So part 1 again was focused on the Tableau REST API. My daughter's pushing her way into the room. We focused on the Tableau REST API. We also learned Python along the way. So, you know, we set up kind of IDE. We talked about how you communicate with that with web data. We showed ways to use Postman to build small applications. We showed a little bit of the art of the possible. We're not going to go through any of that here. The whole goal of this series is every time we kind of start over with a new part, there's no experience necessary. So none of that is required, but you can find that in the 3rd bullet point. So if you go to the website datatheories.com/Tableau coders, we have basically all 5 of the sessions within part 1 with the associated code with all the kind of things that go along with it. So I do encourage you to check that out. You can go through if you're interested and go through those. They're self-contained. You don't need anything but going through those 5 videos. All right, next page. So let's start with the data dev program. Again, so if you have joined us in the past, this may be information that we've already covered or you've heard before, but Tableau does have a really good data dev program. So essentially, if we, I forget what the next page is, Kyle, can you go to the next page? Yeah, so tableau.com/developer, and Kyle, if you can open that, we can do a very quick walkthrough of what that website is. There's a lot of cool things that we've got there.
Oh. Screen sharing has stopped because the window was closed. Well, let me reshare. What? Didn't expect that to happen. All right, can you see?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So Tableau developer program, this is the website I just called out, tableau.com/developer. One of the things that I would recommend if you have not signed up for this program is that you do that today. So if you go in here, you'll have the button at the top, join us. There's a lot of cool things that come with this. So number one, you can get access to a sandbox site in Tableau Cloud. So this gives you the opportunity to kind of have your own little server space, your own site in Tableau. Kyle showed an example right here, and it comes with all the bells and whistles. So all the kind of features that you would expect that you need. It also is very helpful when you want to play around with things like this. You can embed things from Tableau Public. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, but it's always good to have something like this where you maybe want to do things more personally, test things out, play around with settings, configurations, all that kind of stuff is good here. A few other things that come out of that, you do get their newsletter. So typically there is a newsletter that comes out once a month about all of the new happenings in the Tableau data dev world. So what are the new API changes and improvements, things like that. There's also other things on here like information about the different APIs, SDKs. There's some learning resources. There's information about all the community things that are happening. Usually at the beginning of each of these sessions, we'll kind of call out what's new. But since Tableau conference did just happen, there's kind of been a little bit of a pause in any new information on the site. So just know that's there. Do recommend that you go ahead and sign up for a developer program membership. Okay, we flip back to those PowerPoint slides. And I think now I'm going to pass it over, Kyle, to configuring your system.
Yep. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, so everyone, what I'm going to cover here is just getting started. So like we said, we want everyone to, all skill levels to feel comfortable here. So we're going to start from absolute zero when it comes to, I want to sit down and maybe write some of my very first lines of code, whether it's HTML or CSS or JavaScript, or just to get started with embedding here. So let's talk about what we need. So coders need an IDE. What's an IDE, you might ask? An IDE just simply stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it is basically an application for writing code. Back in the day, something like Notepad could have been considered an IDE because it was just somewhere for you to write code, and then you would typically run it somewhere else. Nowadays, they've gotten much more sophisticated, and they do things like help you by suggesting autocompletes, highlighting mistakes. There's a big thing in the development world is something called linting, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. And that's essentially, in most cases, an extension to your IDE for whatever language you're writing in that tells you, that tells your IDE this is wrong, bad style, bad form, you're missing a closing tag, things like that. And you can also in modern day IDEs, have things called formatters, which will not only correct mistakes, but actually make your code easier to read by breaking lines in convenient places or making sure your indentations are consistent. So when you are trying to read through it a year later, you're not like, what was I doing here? Things like that. And in a lot of cases, maybe not so relevant for this series, but if you go back and look at the series 1, and when we get into like hyper API, having an integrated terminal where we can just run things. I see that, Zach. An integrated terminal where you can just run things quickly instead of having to go out and double click on something every time or refresh something every time. There's some of these features will make a little more sense here in just a moment. But IDE sounds scary. It's not. It's just a program it's a fancy text editor that's specifically for writing code. And just some things to call out. Some are specific for certain languages. There's a very popular one called IntelliJ, which started off aimed at JavaScript and Java. Not so much anymore. It's expanded. And then lots of these IDEs will have extensions, marketplaces to take them even further. And some of the IDEs have huge communities, and we'll talk about that again in a second. So for the Tableau Coders Initiative, our recommendation, if you're a blank slate, you don't have any, you don't feel any sort of affinity towards anything yet, Visual Studio Code in our minds is the most approachable tool to start with. It's relatively new in the grand scheme of things when it comes to IDEs, but it has really blown up. It's available for Windows, Mac, Linux. There's even an almost fully featured web version of VS Code that's available now that you can interact with from a tablet. I needed to make a quick change to something while I was in the airport the other day and didn't need to get out my entire laptop. I just got out an Android tablet, hopped on the web version, and was able to make the small change that I needed. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of real quickly walk through did my screen share stop again, or is it still going this time? Okay, last time I exited full screen, it got mad at me. But let me go ahead and just show you the VS Code website here. Let me just copy this, be quicker.
This is an opportunity if you'd like to follow along and get set up, right, Kyle? So
Yes,
if anybody wants
absolutely.
to kind of follow along here, we can't spend a lot of time on this, but if you want to start getting your IDE set up, it's a good opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. And so once this comes up here, this is, Microsoft is being Microsoft right now. One thing to call out if you care, it is a Microsoft product. Some people feel a certain way about that, but it is free. So we'll take what we can get. Here we go. Okay. So as I said here, you can see multiple different versions and installation options for Windows, Linux, Mac, and like I said, there's even the vscode.dev for quick edits online. They've started advertising it here. My intention was to run you through the actual installations on a virtual machine, but the virtual machine I had set up has died this morning. So we will just pretend that we've gone through and downloaded this and installed it. And I'll jump over and now show you a little bit of just what VS Code looks like. So this is VS Code, with actually looking at some of the examples that we're going to look at today. Now, don't worry. If you're brand new to this, you absolutely shouldn't know what's going on here. But I just want to give a quick overview of what
you're still going to have to type all of this in the next 60 seconds. Go.
Yeah. You better get to typing, guys.
Go. You better be doing this right now, or you're going to lose everything.
So I'll actually give we'll start here. So when you open for the first time, you're greeted with this. I'm going to say I want to jump into a folder where I have code stored, file stored. So I'm going to open file, open folder, and just jump into one of my repositories here and just talk
real quick,
a little
Kyle,
bit.
I just want to highlight one thing. When you, since we didn't actually go through the steps of installation, I assume that all of the default settings for the installation is fine. Anything that you call out?
No, there's nothing special needs to be done during installation. And I did just see the request to increase font size. So can someone let me know if that's easier to read on the screen share? Awesome.
Yep.
Thank
you. Okay.
Awesome.
So just to kind of close that thread. So if you guys aren't installing now, it probably would be good for you to install this after the session. So, go to the website that was mentioned, search for VS Code, install it for Windows, Mac, whatever machine you're on, go through, use kind of the default settings to get that installed. And so, as we go through this series, we will kind of have some places where you can code alongside us, learn some things alongside us. So it'd be good to have that set up before the next time that we meet.
Excellent. Great call out. Thank you, Zach. So what we're looking at here, I've got just real quick, I'm not going to teach you necessarily everything about VS Code, but if we look on the left here, we can see, kind of a standard file explorer of the different files that are in the folder that I opened. VS Code is nice. It labels things for me. So based on the extension, I can tell right away, this is an HTML file. This is some sort of picture. I've got Excel files in here, et cetera, et cetera. Over on the left, I can search through things. We'll talk a little bit more about GitHub in future sessions and what you would use it for. But this is the integration of direct integration of VS Code and GitHub right here. These are some debuggers. And the most important thing that I want to talk about right now are some of the extensions that I recommend. for this session specifically. And again, I code in multiple languages, so I've got a lot of extensions installed here. But the ones that I would really have this group focus on for these sessions would be the following. So there's extensions, there's 4 that I would start with. The HTML, CSS support will give you autocompletes for CSS in an HTML inline or as part of an HTML file, which will make more sense later. But that's very helpful when you're trying to get things like autocorrect. You don't want to have to type out the same thing every single time. HTML boilerplate is an extension that allows you to start a web page from scratch that has all of the recommended tags for like accessibility, search optimization, document type declaration, the things that you're going to do every single time. And instead of saving like a template file, this allows you to just start typing HTML and then we'll just pop everything in for you. So again, once we start building things from scratch in sessions 2, 3, and beyond, you'll see these in action, but good to have them ready to go before that. ESLint is a big one. This is our linter. This is what's going to keep us in check, tell us if we've made mistakes. And Prettier is another extension that works with our linter to not only, like I said, correct mistakes and call out maybe not great practices, but also move indentation around, line breaks, things that just make our code more readable and prettier. So I think with that set up, I'm going to hand it back to Zach for the next few slides, and I will be back with you shortly.
Okay. Yes, we're going to make that readier, as Kyle likes to say. All right, next page. Yeah, of course I'm not going to let that slide, Kyle. So. Okay, so now we're going to talk more about kind of the premise and concepts of embedded analytics. So when we refer to this concept, we're talking about any Tableau content being embedded. We're going to talk about these different methods that are mentioned here. Kyle's going to go through a couple of those options in a web page or an application. You can, use different aspects of Tableau inside of once you embed, you can actually call to different parts of Tableau and kind of have communication between the two. We can do things like read and update the filters and parameters. You can expose the results of a selected mark to the web page. You can do things like call some of the actions that are available typically only in toolbars, like exporting and things like that. So a lot of power in embedding Tableau inside of an application where you can really kind of build your own thing. Next page. As we go through this series of sessions, we're going to be talking a lot about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the way that I always like to think about this image, although grainy, actually depicts the picture that I think is really easy to understand when you talk about these three. HTML is really your foundation. It is the thing that you're coding. It is the objects that you're building. So it is, in this concept of a house, it is the framework. It's the frame of the house. It is kind of the house itself. CSS is where you style things. This is cascading style sheets. This is basically applying styles to augment the way that the HTML looks and the objects of the HTML you're creating, how they look. So think of this as you're painting the house. You're giving it kind of a makeover. You're making it look nice. But those are kind of static in their approach until you add JavaScript. So JavaScript is where you kind of you can dynamically change things that are happening within HTML and CSS based on what you've coded into it. You can have interactivity. You can have pass through of data, and you can embed things and have more of a relationship between the thing that you're embedding and what it's embedded in. And in this concept of the house, this is things like the lights and the plumbing and just the electricity, things like that. So again, HTML, that's your foundation. That's the things itself. CSS is the styling of those things, and JavaScript is what kind of gives life to those things. So just very high level. And again, over the next few weeks and months, we'll go into a lot more examples of when you would use HTML, when you would use CSS, how do you add some JavaScript to that? It's just good to have that kind of foundation before we really get started. Next page, I think we might be passing it back to you, Kyle. Yep. So Kyle's going to give us some actual examples of, how we can do some embedding. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is actually show some examples of different ways that you can embed content from Tableau server with differing results based on like what you need. I will show a little bit of the code to kind of show you what the complexity versus not complexity of some of these things. But don't worry, we're not going to dive right into coding right away today. But I want everyone to get a good conceptualization of what's possible and what we're the kind of things we're going to build and work through with this series. So if I jump over, so our first example, the first way to embed something is really an iframe. Iframes, if you're not familiar, if you think of a web page, an iframe is essentially where someone has like cut a hole in the structure of the web page and put another web page inside of it. It's a very, very old method. Like this says here, it's very simple. It doesn't involve any JavaScript that you see. The browsers handle these things. Iframes, like good a call out here though, iframes are very old and they're not super secure. Like iframes, I started web development when I was in high school, which was years ago. And they have functioned exactly the same ever since. So use with appropriate caution, depending on the company you're at or where you might be trying to embed this. There is a good chance that iframes could be blocked. So if that happens to you, you might have to talk to like a site administrator, depending on what you're doing. Just a call out that they are old and are sometimes blocked by newer browsers or really tight security. And another call out, when you embed this way, you can't interact with what you've embedded. And what I mean by that is you've got your little walled off section wherever that might have your Tableau content in it. Anything else, any buttons, any lists, drop downs, anything else elsewhere in your web app or in your website won't be able to see what's inside the iframe. But you may not need that. And so I'm going to give an example here of, I hope there are some Simpsons fans on the line to get the joke here. And as Zach loves to remind me, I am a data dev, not a designer. So please excuse any designs that you do not like. But imagine you had a company called CompuGlobal HyperMegaNet. And ever since they put the internet on computers, you've really wanted to have a web presence here, and you want to brag about some of your KPIs here. So each one of these numbers is a KPI, is a band made in Tableau and embedded using an iframe. So I can quickly, you could imagine you can have some live connections here, and every time a new customer visits, your numbers are increasing. You want to brag about that. This is the simplest way to embed something, and I'll jump over here and show you how this is working. So this is company home, and again, there's a lot on this doc type, all these meta tags. These are the things that I was talking about that HTML boilerplate fills in for me, because these are things that best practices say you should have in every file. And these are and I know I'm trying to ignore Zach over there stirring the pot, but there's a lot of stuff in here.
Me. This is everybody else, Kyle. I think you've got some.
But yes, we'll dive into more line by line what's happening here in the future sessions. But if I jump down to what's actually happening, this iframe, this is 1, 2, 3. That's all it took to get these bands to display on this page. And I got these URLs from the share URLs page on Tableau server. So if I jump over here, so all I did was take this URL and make it the source value of an iframe. I said, yes, I'm embedding it. Toolbars, no. You could say toolbars top, bottom, however you want to do that. But for band type setups like this, doesn't make sense. So you can see here, one line. My linter has broken it into 2 for readability, but this is like 1, 2 lines of code max. So we can see how that could be very useful and very simple. If you didn't want to do anything beyond that, if you didn't need to interact with them, this could be a perfect solution. Let's move on to something a little bit more complex here, and that would be via the share link. And what I mean by that, I will show in a moment. But there is also an ability to copy an embed link directly from that share view. And what that does is copy something a little bit different, and I'll show that in just a second. It's still, you don't really need to know what the script is doing. It does copy a script tag for you, which means that it's going to invoke JavaScript. You don't really need to know what it's doing. You can just copy and paste the whole entire thing into your page and be fine. A call out here, it does rely on a script import. So in some situations, they could also be blocked. Like I know like SharePoint and certain sites like that that just allow you to make little like web parts and things. Sometimes we'll block script imports. So again, check with your security, check with your administrators if you're running into issues there. And same call out, even though this is being embedded, or excuse me, embedded using the JavaScript, using a JavaScript import, this is still kind of a walled off section because we're not invoking the entire embedding API. And so I'll show you a quick example of a way you could do this. So let's imagine, everybody knows of the very, very popular documentation suite offered by a company that we all know and love. And let's just imagine you have like a daily feed of news articles or a blog post or something like that. And we want to throw in some visualizations in here. So, maybe I'm going through my daily feed of, okay, what do I need to do? So I need to annoy Zach, be annoyed by Zach, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, lunch, don't forget lunch. And then what if I want to jump down here and say, oh, okay, I want a weekly recap of how annoying was Zach this week? Came in hot on Monday, like he usually does. He got slightly better throughout the week. Something happened on Thursday. It usually does. I see you scribbling, Zach. And then, Friday's a good day. It's only 5% annoying. Those are like record lows for Zach. So that's pretty good. But what about embedding with filters, with things that have filters and such? Works just like you would expect. So this is actually a dashboard that just has the filters in a container and the visualization below it. And now I can interact with this just like I would anything else on Tableau Server, but I don't have to send my users to Tableau Server. So if I want my users to have this integrated experience in a blog post or a daily feed or even in a technical documentation, I can do that just by copying this, copy embed code. And what that ends up looking like, if we translate that over here, is we've got a little bit more going on. So we've got, like I said, we've got our script import, and then we've just got another tag that this script import enables called Tableau Viz. I can give it an ID if I want to refer to it other places. And then this is my URL. And then if you notice, these are some of these are the same as parameters that I had when I was embedding in an iframe in the URL. So now I'm saying toolbar is hidden. I'm specifying the weight in the width and the height inside of here. I don't want to see tabs, etc. So you can see here, this is maybe 10 lines, if that, and not really because my linter has turned it this way. So still very minimal effort, a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can do, but again, not invoking the full API. So let's get to the good stuff. So let's see the kind of things that we can do when we are embedding using the full embedding API, and we have really unlocked everything that we can do. So I'm going to switch over to an example of a Viz portal that I have put together here. Now, the Vizes that I chose here are you probably wouldn't do this kind of thing. I made sure to include things that have visible filters and parameters so you can see that they're changing. When we go through and build things, we'll build them in such a way that there's no need for the filter on the Viz because it's part of our web application. Or we have, our drop down for parameter is part of our nav bar, so it doesn't need to appear in the Viz. We'll think about things like that. So this uses the full embedding API, like I said. So I can embed something that it can just be here. I don't really need any other interactivity with it. Or I can go into something like this, where I have embedded something that has parameters and toggles all throughout. And I can read the value of the parameter. So I know the active value is Columbus, and I know that the possible values are the 3 C's in Ohio. So if I switch to Cincinnati, you can see the Viz updates. I don't have to actually click on it. Same with the toggles. If let's toggle restaurants. If I don't want restaurants to show up, I can build it into my web page instead of into my Viz. And you can start to see how this could be, you could start creating UIs and experiences that are totally outside of what you could do in Tableau without, maybe hours and hours and hours of worth of hacking or extensions or things like that. You can really take full control of your visualization through the embedding API. So just to give another example here, so this one has a filter. I can read the filtered values, I can read the active value, and I can change the filter. Again, all from the web page, which essentially makes a call back to Tableau server and says, I would like for you to update what's displaying in this container that has been initialized by the embedding API. So I know that was a lot, and that was fast, and the intention wasn't necessarily for you to grab everything from that. This was a really quick art of the possible demo. We will focus mainly on the solutions similar to this, where we have a fully embedded experience, and we're building our web app around it. But along the way, raise your hand, give us ideas, ask questions like maybe you're thinking about embedding something. Is the juice worth the squeeze to go this far? Or can you get away with an iframe? Or can you get away with the simple embed from the embed code URL? Those are things we want to talk about and find the best solution for. So with that, I'm going to jump back over to the slides because we have a couple more, and then we want to make sure that we leave some time for Q&A. So I'm going to get caught up here. The only real call out for embedding via the full embedding API is that it typically needs to be running on a web server. The two examples prior to that I showed were just sitting on files sitting on my computer. The last one I showed is actually hosted on the web because of some of the technical things that are the asynchronous and technical things that are going on behind the scenes. Oops, excuse me. And so, yeah, I'm also just calling out, you have access to almost everything. And this is where the fun really starts. So the code for the first two examples and the portal example they are two separate repos. One of them is Tableau_embedding. The Viz repo or Viz portal is an older example, and it's in its own repo on GitHub, but you'll be able to find them both at github.com/kjmassey. We'll also add this information to Zach's website, along with these slides and a link to the video once it's available. All right, Zach, do you want to talk about this slide?
Yeah. So kind of wrapping up here a little bit, and then we're going to leave plenty of time for questions. So probably not this page, Kyle. Making mistakes.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
yeah,
what did I do?
Way down. There. Yeah.
There we go.
There it is.
All right,
so the plan is we're going to, just like kind of in part one, we're going to meet every 2 weeks. Same time, so 2 weeks from today, June 2nd, you can go ahead and already register for that session. It's live. We'll post that on Twitter and LinkedIn just so you guys have that. Again, today was really more about concepts. It was really just about learning, the very beginning of where you're going to go with this session, these series. So going into the next session, we will start to spend some time going into the code. Now, everything that Kyle showed is not stuff that you need to know right now. All those lines of code doesn't make sense. But over time, we're going to teach those to you, what's happening line by line, what's happening in the code, how you can do that yourself, how you can use your own pages to embed. And so starting in 2 weeks, we'll start with the basics of HTML. How do you create a very simple page? And how do you simply embed a Tableau dashboard into it? We will kind of still be going through some of the earlier options that Kyle showed just in the beginning. But as he mentioned, we are going to move more towards where can you go with the actual APIs and build more of a full-fledged application. We're also going to show you a little bit about the new embedding sandbox product that Tableau is coming out with. This is pretty cool. If you have not seen this before, this essentially allows you to create simple web embedding applications with a drag and drop interface. So you can kind of import your things and drag and drop different things to create a website. It's going to spit out the code, and then you can use that code in your own stuff. But again, the focus here is conceptual today. and we'll start to code here in 2 weeks. The only real homework that we have for you guys, if you're going to keep, joining us along the way, is go ahead and get VS Code installed on your machine so that you can go through those and go ahead and install the extensions that Kyle mentioned, so that you have you're basically set up with the same environment that Kyle and I are. So when we code, you'll see kind of the same thing. But aside from that, that's really it for today. As promised, this was the best hour of your life so far. We will try and do better in 2 weeks and even improve upon that. We're going to be here for the next 20 minutes, really, to just answer questions. And since we're using Zoom, I would say if you just want to hop off of mute and just, let us know. We're here to answer.
One quick call out, just to let everybody know, the second session is already available at usergroups.tableau.com. So go ahead and sign up now.
Awesome. If you got a drop, thanks. Have a great weekend. If you've got questions or you just want to chat with us in all of our awesomeness, or at least my awesomeness, we're going to be here to talk. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
I think we do have, Kyle, a couple questions if we want to go ahead and jump into those.
Yeah, let's do that. Or if anyone asks the question and just like Zach says, just wants to jump off mute, go right in. Go right ahead.
Hey guys. Thank you. This is really a good session. I'm pretty much excited about the APIs in Tableau. So
Awesome.
Looking forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, correction. It was a great session, but yeah, thank you.
No, this is really insightful. I'm looking forward, honestly speaking. Guys, I think
awesome.
where I was kind of going towards is wanted to understand. I know, today we are able to see the Tableau views, right? In terms of the number of views, users and all that. Isn't there a way to kind of get an API call or make an API call to kind of just get the same view in the same dashboard? Maybe, on the top of the dashboard as against, on the main page. Like instead of me going into the server, writing a query, can I not make an API call, which kind of shows me the number of views for that particular dashboard or a view?
Yeah, you will still need to get the data programmatically. It's not going to be exposed in the embedding API. The best way, if you wanted to build kind of a seamless application that shows the web page and the view counter of how many has been hit, you either would have a query to Postgres. Actually, I think that would be the only thing, because I was going to say the metadata API, but that does not have the view count. So you would have to hit Postgres to get the view count that's there. But you could, inside of your application, write a query. It's getting a little bit more involved, but you could have a query to Postgres as part of your application, and that queries to Postgres returns a view counter and exposes that. And you could build that to where it actually renders into a Tableau visualization, and that's the little viz that goes above it.
Does it need special? Would it need any specific access to the server? Like, I mean, since everybody can see, right? Like whoever can log in or access the dashboard should be able to see the number of views of a dashboard. Do they need separate access when they open the dashboard? Because the idea is, people will go and open the dashboard, and then on the top they see, number of views on the dashboard, right? Versus today what we see is a separate page on views, right?
You would you would probably hide kind of the read-only account access, behind the scenes. You wouldn't allow the user, like you wouldn't be leveraging the user's access to do the view count. You would be using probably the read-only account, and then you would kind of have a credential storage mechanism maybe that you're hitting dynamically so that you don't expose those credentials.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
There were two questions. Oh, sorry. There were two questions in the chat that were a little further back that I wanted to make sure we answered. So Joshi, do you need to install any library to use Tableau Viz, the Tableau Viz tag? No, not if you're using the copy embed code example that has the script tag with it. That script tag is what enables that Tableau Viz tag. So if you're doing if you're doing the first example with just an iframe and you're not importing any script, then no, that tag would not work. But as long as you have that script import, then nothing special to do the next tag. And then are there any issues with organizations that use SSO? No, and no matter which way you do it, Tableau server is still handling the authentication. So it will do it just like it would if you navigated directly to it.
The only thing I'd add there is when you get into kind of full applications, there's kind of a mechanism of trusted authentication that you can handle, some of the authentication on your application as opposed to Tableau, and you're basically passing trust from the application. But that's getting a little bit more advanced. But that may be, depending on your use case, something to look into. Danny, you've got your hand raised. You want to go ahead?
Yes, I missed half of the session. Didn't open in Chrome. Is this session recorded? Where I can achieve the recording?
So the recording for today or for the previous ones?
Today or previous one? Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so the previous ones are all available. I put it in the post. And Kyle's got it in there too, the website link. So datatheories.com/Tableau coders. And then after we get this one posted up on YouTube, we'll have this one on there as well. So that's how you can get that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lori?
Hi, I hope y'all can hear me. I just wanted to actually thank Kyle. I met him at Tableau conference.
Lori! Hi!
Hey,
I
Kyle.
remember you.
And you told me about this, and it is exactly what I need. So I really, really appreciate you guys, everything you're doing, and me getting my hand back after an 11-year hiatus from coding, getting back into it. This is perfect. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Lori. So glad you could join.
Sorry you had to deal with him at conference, but thanks for joining.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle,
Yeah,
but I made
I
it
know.
through.
Trust me. Every
Don't
day, day in,
encourage
day out.
him.
That's my
Don't
life.
encourage him.
Kyle, you did give me a little bit of a warning about Zach, I believe, while we were talking.
I always do.
Oh, that sounds like him. Yeah. All right, Kyle, we're going to talk about performance reviews after this. All right. Anybody else? Feel free, jump in, let us know if you got questions. They're stunned, Kyle. They're stunned
I know
by the
there's still
amazingness.
45 people on the line, and we've got some questions coming. So I'll take the first. Not just wanted to thank you. Oh, thank you, Emmerich. That's very sweet. We were going to mention prerequisite that you mentioned before. Okay, so Chitral, what I'll do, that's a good suggestion. What I'll do is I'll update the second event's description to include that prerequisite, and I'll give a link to the slides from the last presentation so that folks are aware that that would be most helpful if they join on the second.
Well, I think he's also, I think he's just saying, like, can we repeat it? So the prereqs were get VS Code installed and install the extensions. And maybe, Kyle, you want to flip to that page with the extensions. That would probably be handy. So basically, you want to install VS Code, and then inside of VS Code, there's an option at the top where you can kind of search for extensions. You would search for these 4, get them installed, and you'll be ready. And likely, I would say in 2 weeks when we get to the second session, we will spend a couple minutes kind of going over this again just to make sure. If you can't code along with this, is not the end of the world. Again, these sessions will be recorded, so you can kind of jump in later and go back through anything that you miss. It'll be available for you.
So. Danny, did you have another question? Oh, guess not. All right.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Anybody
else want to tell us how amazing this was? Anybody?
Yeah, it was amazing. Honestly, God, if I had had something like this when I first started to learn to code a million years ago, it would have been great, but I was on my own. The internet had just been born. So anyway,
awesome.
So I have an accounting background, but I wasn't getting the data I needed, and I knew it was there. IT was pretty much useless, so I'm like, I just have to learn to do this myself. But that kind of led me to webmastering, just so I could get data in and out. Anyway, about a year and a half ago, I went rogue. I mean, I became a freelancer. So I decided that I really needed to put a Tableau dashboard up on my website, just so I could say I could. I do have some, tiny interactivity with it. Again, because of my background, I was able to do that. So, but my question or my issue right now is, I do have a Tableau online account, just, one license, just so I've got it there to play with, to use it, blah, blah, blah. But my embedded dashboard or workbook on my site, I've actually pointing it to a hidden Tableau public workbook because I only have the one license on my online cloud account. Do you know, is there a way for me to add something to my online account to give other people access without having some kind of an authentication method?
No, unfortunately, Tableau Cloud is a paid for thing. So I think what you probably have is the free sandbox that I mentioned earlier in the call. So
yeah, no, I
that
mean, I
just-
actually have the full, I have a paid account, but like I said, it's just one license. So unless I were to give someone credentials, then
yeah.
So I guess I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
have
I
to
would-
stick with the hidden Tableau public viz, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the putting it on Tableau Public and not showing it, but having the URL, that's really kind of your
And it's
only
nothing, I
option
mean,
there.
this is just for show. This is just to
Yeah.
say, hey, hire me to do your Tableau work. I don't necessarily want to do, I don't really want to do embedded Tableau workbooks on other people's websites because when I discovered Tableau, when I first started using it in a job several years ago, it was like, this solves like my problems. I don't have to do webmastering anymore. Tableau will do like 90% of everything that people ask for. It's that other 10%, which is.
Yeah, your best option is going to be the Tableau Public if you want it to be kind of a
Okay.
free open thing that you,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
it's kind of part of your resume kind of thing, like you definitely
Right.
want that to be on Tableau Public.
Right. And if I do get a client that, they're dead set on having, an embedded API, I mean, I can jump in and, do whatever I need to do. But anyway, I just wanted to, I figured I, got you guys here. I'd ask to see if you had any ideas.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pam. Ben, I see you got your hand raised.
Yeah, it might be a dumb question, but I know you can embed Shiny apps within Tableau dashboards, but could I use the embed API to embed a Shiny or a Tableau dashboard in a Shiny app, like inline? Say I already have something built out of Visual that I want to use, but I don't want to rebuild it in Shiny. So could I just use this to kind of drop that in place?
Yeah, I can't say I know much about Shiny. But as long as you can, add HTML and embedded objects to it, you should be able to do that. You might want to, like, if you really want to have both embedded, it may be more of you build kind of a website application and you're embedding both things. So I'm sure Shiny has kind of their own APIs that you can embed with them. Then you'd embed Tableau kind of all separately. And so, but I'd have to kind of look a little bit into that because I don't think either Kyle or I have much experience in the Shiny space.
Yeah, but that was the same suggestion I would have made is if you want them to live together and can maintain full control over both, probably embedding them both in a page or an application side by side instead of one inside of the other.
That makes sense. I'll try it out. I'll let you all know.
Awesome.
Good. Anybody else? Got 7 more minutes.
Oh, thank you, Rico. That's an awesome compliment.
Thank you, Boris.
Absolutely. All right. I'm gonna give it last call. Any other questions?
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, well, Zach, one thing we didn't
Absolutely.
do, if there are people who are, maybe a little shy or don't want to ask questions out loud, We are both on Twitter. We didn't really call out.
Yeah.
We showed them. We didn't really call out. I'm at Up in Your Business, and Zach is at Zach's Viz. If you have any questions or if you think of anything after the fact, later this afternoon, tweet us, DM us, or you can DM me. I won't speak for Zach, but tweet at us. Find us on Twitter. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about what we've covered today, or if you're maybe a little further along and you have a more advanced question, feel free. We're both very open and receptive to having side conversations involving data dev as well.
Absolutely.
I just saw one more. I saw one more question in the chat from Emery. If in your method 3 with full capability embedding into your web story, are you actually using connected apps and JWT? Not in the example that I have, that I showed, but it is definitely possible. You're welcome.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to drop. I appreciate everybody's time. As Kyle mentioned, feel free to reach out to us. Go ahead and register for session 2, and that's going to be in 2 weeks. And hope you guys have an awesome, amazing weekend. I know it won't be as good as this, but try your best. Otherwise, we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Thanks, guys.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.